Hey, everybody, and welcome to Tea Talk. I told you guys that I was still going to do Thursday, but I was going to start bringing you guys a Monday evening chat so that more people who are quote unquote at work, working from home, pretending to work, working a little, not working at all, whatever you want to call it, could participate in the conversation. This conversation I'm really excited about because every time I talk to somebody and I'm like, hey, how's virtual schooling going? They're like, I quit. And we laugh about it because you really can't quit virtual schooling. Like if you have kids and you are a parent, they got to be in school. And some people right now are lucky enough that their kids are going face to face, if you want to call that luck. In my area, they just shut everyone down who was going face to face. And for the next 2 weeks, allegedly, they're going to be virtual, but I don't think we're going back to school until January. So I felt like this was the perfect time for me to bring on the professional to really help us navigate and figure out the best things that we should be doing. So for those of you who don't know, and if you're new here, my name is Tamika. I'm the mouth of IG at Tamika Talks, and I'm the thought leader at Life and Pumps, where I'm based in the Philadelphia area. Today, my special guest is like the education extraordinaire. Her name is Erika Battle, and I believe you live in Nashville, Tennessee, right?
I do.
Okay, that's what I thought. And let me tell you how I remember that, because today I was thinking about hot honey chicken. And whenever I think of hot honey chicken, I know. I'm greedy. What you want me to do? But please introduce yourself. Let everyone knows what you do and where they can find you when we're done this chat.
All right. So I'm going to tell you about the hot chicken. So, and I'll get into myself. It just cracks me up that Nashville is known about hot chicken. And so everybody's like, don't you love Nashville hot chicken? No, I do not like spicy chicken. I don't eat hot chicken. I don't. I just like a nicely seasoned, crispy piece of fried chicken. That's all I need. I don't need it to be hot. I don't.
What about the honey piece though?
I don't. I do eat honey on my chicken. So I will put honey, but nothing hot. I don't eat anything spicy. And it's funny when I go out of town and it's Nashville hot chicken on their menu. What?
Yeah.
Go figure.
I know. And what's funny about that is I will only eat Nashville hot honey chicken in Nashville. Just like I will not eat a Philly cheesesteak anywhere outside of Philly. So I get you on that piece.
I can understand that. Now I can understand that.
Yes.
So hello and thank you for having me. Okay, I'm gonna pause. Can you hear the echo?
No.
Okay, good. Okay. It's echoing in my
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right, great. So hello everyone. My name is Erika Battle. I am in Nashville, Tennessee. Actually, I was born and raised. So I am not a transplant. I've lived here my entire life. I have. It's very interesting when I meet people because they, it's like I've never met a native Nashvilleian. I am a native Nashvilleian, born and raised. I'm actually a second career educator. So, that's another story for another day. So, initially, I did not want to be a teacher. I actually wanted to be a broadcast journalist. I went to Tennessee State University and I majored in mass communications. I interned at a newsroom and realized it did not match with my personality. So I needed to find something different to do. It did not match.
That's hilarious.
It did not match. And so I wound up actually going into public relations. And public relations was great for me because I love networking. I love making connections. I'm the introvert extrovert. So I'm very introverted, but I love relationships. And so that was perfect for me. Well, I was in a family firm. The family firm decided to downsize. I wasn't family. I needed a job. So I wound up substitute teaching, and I have been teaching ever since. I actually found my love substitute teaching, which was something that I said I would never, ever do. I taught actually 11 years full time. And I always taught in the middle school, which is funny. I started with 7th grade students, the one grade that no substitute or new teacher should ever teach. Ever in life, because ever. And then I wound up staying in the middle school. So I've done quite a few things. I have been an instructional specialist, a literacy coach, a response to intervention specialist. I've also been a teacher. In 2017, though, I transitioned and I have been consulting full-time since 2017. So basically what that means now is I work with schools and school districts, school leaders to help them them with their high impact instructional strategies. I help them look at things like bias and equity. I work with them on trauma informed practices, also addressing the social and emotional needs of students. So now my job is to to help, I don't want to say make sure, but to help teachers find that aha moment so they can be more effective when working with students.
Wow, that's a lot. Yeah. So you've done like the rooter to the tutor, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, everything in between, which is great because that makes you, really the expert. I mean, people know that they can kind of pretty much ask you a little bit of anything and come to you for whatever because you've kind of covered it all. You've been and seen a lot of it, in addition to the fact that you are a parent as well.
Yeah.
But what I want to talk about is right now, people are just, the virtual schooling is just not working. And what I will say is I feel like when it first happened, a lot of parents were upset because they just didn't feel like their kids were learning anything. And, me included, because I was kind of like, what is going on here? And I had to take a step back and realize, this is new for everybody. So now moving forward, we are almost literally, what are we, 10 months in this pandemic at this point? I don't even know how many months we're in at this point. And now, so for some schools who went back for a little while, they are now going virtual. So parents are getting that feeling like, what do I do? How do I deal with this? And it becomes a thing where, my thought pattern has always been, school is a partnership between you, the teacher, and the student. It's a triangle. We're all connected. But now without that face-to-face interaction, a lot of people are feeling like, that triangle is broken. So what are some ways or some ideas, I guess, that parents can feel like they can mend or kind of, reach out a hand to get that triangle back together? What are your thoughts?
Well, let me say this. When virtual learning first started, no one was prepared for that. No one. I mean, virtual learning has never been a thing. And then when emergencies do happen, they're not 9-month emergencies. There may be a week or two. And so we can make adjustments for a week or two of an emergency. So now, basically infrastructure had to be put in place to make sure that students continue to learn, and listen, I'm a realist and I'm gonna be honest. There are going to be some deficiencies and there are going to be some gaps because some school districts were able to quickly create a virtual learning plan and some schools were not able to do it as quickly, right? So you did have students who had that gap and that span of where there was not really a whole lot of learning going on. They may have had packets and things like that, but that's not learning. That's called busy work to keep kids engaged in some type of school academically, right? And so now, so now I'm a parent and then I'm also an educator. So I see things twofold. Okay, so I'm gonna have to talk to both sides, right? Because just like parents are feeling disconnected, you have teachers too who feel disconnected as well. Even myself, even though I work with teachers, most of my work is face to face. So, I had schools where I had worked in for a couple of years and abruptly have not seen them since March. Do you see what I'm saying? So even me as a professional, I've had to make adjustments as well. And what does relationship building look like when I can't touch you and when, we're not face to face and we're sitting on a camera? And so one of the first things that I would suggest for parents is, and we're going into the second semester, right? In 4 weeks, it'll be Christmas break and we'll be heading into the second semester. But I always look at the January as a start of a new semester because we've had a chance to kind of have a break from each other and we're starting fresh. So one of the things I would say is we have to give educators grace as well, because it's not as if this was our plan. Although educators are working from home and they prefer it because it's safer, believe me, most of the teachers that I work with would prefer to be in their classroom to see their kids every day, because they know it's so much easier to build those relationships. So just as parents are, wishing that their kids had the opportunity to build relationships and they had the opportunity to build relationships, the teachers are wishing the same thing, right? And so, just as teachers have to give grace, parents have to give that grace as well, to allow teachers the opportunity to adjust as well. I know everyone thinks we're superheroes, which we are. But educators, everyone has to go through an educator, but we also need grace as well to navigate this unprecedented time. Like, this was nothing that we expected even to be doing long term ourselves.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, and I feel like so many people are feeling that right now. Just the strain of it, and all the jokes that went around, and was like, the teacher had been telling you that your kid was bad, you didn't want to believe him. Now you're living it. So absolutely, and I think that is part of the reason why so many parents were so upset and remain upset. And and I love how you said give them grace. Because I think that oftentimes people forget that even though you guys are superheroes, you are I will listen. I bow down to you. You're still human.
Yeah.
And then you have to think of the educator who's also a parent, who is not only trying to educate your child, but is also trying to educate their own child. So there's a lot of dynamics and people aren't seeing it. And so even this week, I posted on my Facebook page, and I was just talking about the comments that so many people were making, because our Board of Health, when they started seeing all the cases rising, and then, realizing that a lot of the kids were the carriers, because, they're out wherever and hanging out with, doing whatever, and the parents, and, they were realizing that Thanksgiving was coming. People were talking about traveling, even though they were saying don't do it. They were realizing that, potentially them going away and coming back to school could really be a big problem. And I said this in June, we're going to be back shut down come November because you all don't want to listen. So they had a open Zoom call, and you just had to kind of log in to get the information. Parents were in an uproar because the Board of Health was saying the numbers are rising every day. And they're not by 10 or 20. The numbers are rising by thousands.
Yes.
And though, we maybe we don't have as many deaths right now as we did, because we're getting a better handle on it. But if we don't slow it down, we're going to be right back to where we were in March. These parents didn't care. They were in an uproar, and one lady was like, well, I can't work if my kid is home, and I can't feed my family. I mean, and you want to sympathize with them, but it's this is a national pandemic. This isn't just something that's just happening really small here. And I love that you said that. Give them grace, because a lot of the parents were on there saying stuff. And what I had said to the one lady is, well, what are the teachers saying? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, that's really kind of who we should listen to. How are they feeling? If my teacher felt uncomfortable being in school, then I feel like we should all be home. That's who we need to listen to. And I often feel we place so much on these teachers. We don't want to pay them enough money. We want them to babysit our kids. When our kids do bad, we blame them. It's important we're not listening. So I don't know. So I love that you said give grace. And I think that's going to be my response from here on out. When people ask me or people say things about it, give them grace. So
everyone needs grace, though. Not just teachers, but parents need grace as well. But we, and it's interesting that you say that, and how parents are uproar. But then a lot of times when I'm out, today and yesterday, I was out. It was a mom and about 5 kids. None of them had masks on, right? None of them were practicing. The only reason why they were not close to me is because I made sure to keep my buggy behind me instead of, unloading my stuff and then pushing my buggy. So the same people that are upset that schools are closing are the same people that are not practicing those recommended safety precautions, right? And listen, it's everyone's choice, I can't tell somebody they should or should not do a mask. I do what's best for me and my family. But when things are not going your way and they're recommended guidelines that we're not following, something's not matching, right?
Exactly.
So, and if you're not following those guidelines and still complaining about your kid not being able to go to school, something is missing, right? Something is missing. Right. And those, I could go on and on. But, as parents, it's really up to us. It's up to us to make sure that not only are we being safe, but we're ensuring that our kids are also practicing, taking those safety precautions as well. So.
Absolutely. So I like how you said, you don't want to tell people to wear a mask. I'm the total opposite. You need to put on a mask.
No, they do.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
People need to wear a mask. And, I have let everyone know this week, I am not happy. Normally I would be with my family. It would be lots of us all loving and cooking and doing what we do. But we just could not take the risk that something would happen and any of us would be the carrier. And then next thing you know, we are looking at people in the hospital because of choices that we've made. And I've been very vocal about this. And I said, yes, your choices affect other people. Stop being selfish and think about these people. But
that's true. That's selfish behavior.
Exactly. Yeah. Moving on. Don't get me. Don't
get you started on that. Okay.
No. Woo stop. But okay, so let's talk about the students. How can we help them to, one, stay motivated? Because I'm over Zoom calls. Like, people are messaging me and they want to meet, and like, even for Thanksgiving, they're like, well, we can do Thanksgiving over Zoom. And I was like, I can't.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, it was fun. It was like, oh, okay, yes, everybody can jump on a Zoom. Now I'm like, I don't want to be on any more Zoom calls. I don't want to be on any more Zoom calls. So what can we do for the student who is feeling that way? Like, I know that's where my son is. He's like, I don't really like school anyway. I like the social aspect of it, but now it's like, you want me to be sitting in my room, paying attention to this, knowing the teacher is probably, whatever. So what can we do to help our kids be engaged?
So one of the things, first of all, is keeping a schedule. Right. And maintaining structure and normalcy. And it doesn't even matter if the kid is an older child or high school. There still needs to be some structure and normalcy because, I hate to say it, there are a lot of parents and students alike that are not taking this virtual schooling seriously. And then when those card markings come up and the grades, they realize, oh, wait, you were taking real grades, like grades.
Wait, the serious.
Right. Like grades, like this is a F, like F. And this, and it's kind of like, they need to have a structure. Kids need to have a structure so it can mimic some type of normalcy. Of course, it's not normal. And honestly, most kids do go to school for the social aspect. They go to school for the extracurricular activities. They go to school to be at lunch and hang out with friends. They go to school for gym and recess. And so that aspect of the school day is gone where they don't have their peers with them. And I'm sure they're tired of Zoom. I'm tired of Zoom too. Listen, about this time, I'm working with teachers in the islands. I would be in the islands. No, I'm working with them over Zoom. So even to me, that's not any fun. But I still have to keep some sense of normalcy. I make sure when I'm doing my meetings, I'm in my office, right? I don't take my meetings in my bedroom or anything like that because my bedroom is my space. And so not only should kids have a structure and a schedule, but they should also have a designated space that is meant for school and outside of their bedroom. Because when school is over, close that up and go back to life. Not everyone is able to, but just as they say, you shouldn't watch TV before you go to bed because it's hard for you to wind down. You shouldn't take work and schoolwork into your bedroom either because it's hard for you to, to kind of separate and disconnect from School is school, and this is now I'm in my room chilling with my friends. Another thing is as many extracurricular activities that are safe, allow kids to participate in them, and they might not be safe face to face. It might be online mentoring courses right now. It might be online music lessons. It might be online tournaments, but they need to have a social aspect. And we really don't want them going to parties, of course, because we know if they're going to parties, they're not masking, they're close, they're playing with each other. So we just need to make sure that they're in a space that they really can identify when they're feeling a little anxious, when they're feeling isolated, and then are they able to kind of get those feelings out, right? Oh, my phone is about to fall. Right, that's the mama reflexes. I caught that.
You sure did. You were funny.
So yeah,
that's so I agree with that. So here's another question that I have. So how can they combat that time management thing? Because, like when you work from home, you tend to do more than you would do if you were in the office. Mm-hmm. So how should children go about dealing with time management and making certain that, the time that they're spending is effective, whereas they're not spending 8 hours sitting in front of the computer and really haven't gotten anything done, as opposed to if they were at school in that time block, they would have gotten some stuff done. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I would look to see how your online schedule is broken up. So in most instances and cases, what I have seen is schools are making it where kids are online no more than 4 hours. Right. Okay. So a regular school day is 7.5 hours. Right. If I'm online for 4, I need to designate some time to do my homework. It shouldn't be screen time and then I'm done. No, screen time. If you were in school, you would do your homework, when you got home. Allow your kid to have an opportunity to be online, take a moment, chill, just like we have to do, and then come back, right? And then it's a cutoff time. Listen, that's it. Okay, go enjoy your life. That's it. But we still need to make sure that they're on a schedule, because they do need to be held accountable. You'll be surprised. Well, you wouldn't be. It's amazing how many students, because I still work with teachers. Although I'm not necessarily teaching, I still work with teachers. And so one of the things that parents need to know is when you don't make your children your child do their work when it's due, and then all of a sudden grades are coming out and they see that, oh my gosh, I'm missing 8 assignments. That same teacher has a family of their own, and they should be allowed the same opportunity to disconnect as we want the students to be able to disconnect. And a lot of times that's not grace given to the teachers. Parents are upset because teachers don't stop what they're doing immediately and grade missing work that have, when a kid hadn't done any work all semester, and now you want to turn in 10 assignments to bring your grade up. So, be mindful. If I teach 70 kids and 50 kids decide that they don't want to do anything until the very end, really?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so here's the thing. I feel like that even when you're in face-to-face school, and that is something that, I tell my kids often. And I'm really kind of hands off, which is a good thing for my daughter because of who she is.
Yeah.
And, she is like, no, this is it. Whereas for my son, I probably should have taken a different approach.
Uh-huh.
And because of that approach, he would be the one who would be trying to turn in 20 assignments the day before they're due.
Yeah.
And looking to me to be like, well, I don't know why the teacher didn't. And I'm the parent who's like, well, you get an F.
Yeah.
Sorry. Because you're right. Like we shouldn't expect people to stop living and turn over tables and all of that for us because we didn't prepare properly.
Listen, I hope your viewers are not getting mad at me, because I'm not, I'm really taking a neutral stance, right? Because, I know they're like, wait a minute, she's not saying anything I want to hear. But remember, in the beginning, you said we're like a triangle. So it's the teacher, the student, and the parent. And one thing that is a benefit with the virtual learning, most assignments are online. And just as parents can check in IG and Facebook and TikTok, we can also take an opportunity just to, look over the Google assignments real quick to see what has been completed and turned in and what hasn't. Listen, let's tell the truth, shame the devil right quick, right? Let's tell the truth, shame the devil. But then we also have teachers that also, I will say this. In the very beginning, there was a phrase that says safer at home. Right. And I tell people all the time, safe at home is not safe for everybody. Right, you have some kids who are really not in a situation that is a safe situation where it provides structure, where it provides the opportunity to have someone who is available to help them when they need it. We do have, if we're looking at the research and the data, domestic violence is up, and so is child abuse, right? Because safer at home is not safe for everybody. So I'm not saying that it's all on the parents, because teachers also have a part to play, because we are in this together, right? And so it doesn't weigh heavily on one side versus the other. And one thing that I want to see, I hope kind of dies down a little bit, is a power trip. It's always a power dynamic between teachers and parents. Sometimes it's kind of like, well, I'm the parent, I'm gonna tell you, well, I'm the teacher, I can show you. And I always, when I was a teacher, I used to tell my students, listen, you never talk crazy to someone who has the power of the pen.
Listen, right. Girl.
So, that's the truth.
Yes, absolutely.
And that is the truth. So I was not that teacher. Now, I was not a pushover teacher by far. Okay. That's not happening. But at the same time, I was not. But at the same time, I tried my hardest to make sure that I didn't hold my students accountable for the actions of their parents, right? Because it's not fair. It's not fair to the students. But at the same time, the students know the part they play, because you're with me every day. So the expectations, what needs to be done. And so one of the things that you said when you asked me, what about how do we keep kids motivated? As parents, we have to have a positive outlook on this thing, because listen, this is still school, and school is still going on. And one of the things that I would hate to see happen is that the learning gaps continue to widen, because certain populations did not take this time seriously and did not use it to their benefit. And the deficits of certain populations continues to grow so wide that they can't catch up,
That's real. That's real. I mean, here in our area, okay, wait, first we have a comment. So Tiffany is saying people in her parent group are worried about report cards, and she's like, why? The grades are online every day. Go look. Absolutely. And, so we can even touch on that, because, like I always said, I've always felt like the education process was a triangle. And what happens is that triangle shifts according to who's going to do more of the work. When everybody is doing their share, it's a great movement. But as soon as one person slack off and somebody else have to pick up the slack, that's when we get that imbalance. And that's when a lot of the whole nonsense and the mess comes about. With that, absolutely. And so even though people might not like what you're saying is true. We have to realize that the onus is not just on the teachers. I mean, realistically. And so here in the Philadelphia area, what's been happening is, we have a serious divide, a gap. They showed there were students who either didn't have a computer or they didn't have access to Wi-Fi, right? And what happened is, what's so crazy about them not having access to Wi-Fi is Comcast is based in, Philadelphia Comcast owns Philadelphia. Everything is Comcast. And so what happened is Comcast has all of these programs, Internet Essentials. Now they even rolled out this program called PHL Connected. And what that program is literally for people who cannot afford like to pay anything to really help them to make sure that their children are connected to Wi-Fi in some kind of manner. What happens is oftentimes parents are afraid to take the extra step to enroll in these programs because they don't want people knowing their business. So we got so many different things going on with this. And I've been telling a lot of people about this PHL Connected program because it's an amazing program with area schools and organizations to really make certain that we do not increase this educational gap. And it's happening. And some of these children are so bright, but because they can't get the same things that my children are able to get, they're falling behind.
Right.
And then Comcast has also rolled out as a part of their service, you can go to your remote and type in education or just say education, and there are educational resources to help because we all know parents aren't teachers. Like for me, I always wanted to be a teacher. I went to school. I was gonna be an educator, and then my sister was like, "You like to shop? That's not gonna work for you. So don't do that." But I love being a part of the learning process. And I tell my kids all the time, when you come out from school, you got to teach me whatever it is you're learning. Yeah. But I realized that that's not everybody's wheelhouse. And I remember the first shutdown, people were like, we're dropping these kids off at your house. You like teaching them, we're putting them to your house. Or calling me, help me do this, help me do that. And so I love that now Comcast is giving them another resource. And I've been sharing this with people because I'm like, I know you're frustrated. You're stressed out. You're like, I've got to do my job and teach them. I'm not equipped for it. I'm like, now there are services that you can get, take advantage of what is available and what's out there.
Yeah. Wait. Oh.
Another comment. So she's saying it's the parents' responsibility now. These parents in her group are unbelievable. She don't know how computer illiterate, technology enabled, don't check email, text, mailers, etc. Parents, wow. And the parents are angry. Wow, exactly. And that's what happens. So I'm telling you, the discussion has been on the table about shutting schools down for a while, right? When they did that Zoom call, you would have thought that this is the first we heard of COVID. And the first that we seen that the numbers were like doubling and tripling. They are literally on there cursing these horrible. It's horrible. But go ahead, you were going to say something.
So I was going to say one thing that the pandemic has really highlighted for me was the disparities in education, right? It really highlighted the haves and the have-nots, right? And I tell people that all the time because I tell people, and I use my son for an example because he does go to a private school. They're still face-to-face. They have the capability, they hired a nurse specifically to be on site with them to perform rapid tests every day. So they have resources that, the typical public school does not have. If you were to see their campus, it looks like could be a small private college. And so they have and then, the population is less than 1,000. So they maybe have 750 kids on campus. Well, they made accommodations to be able to do the social distancing. They already had small class sizes anyway. They never had a class more than 20. They had the resources to make the classes even smaller, so the kids could have space or whatever. But, to that point, their learning continued, right? Mm-hmm. Nothing stopped. When they did have to go virtual within a week, they had a full virtual plan laid out. They had an all-school meeting with all the boys with their grade level on Zoom, rolled out their new Zoom schedule, and it just continued on as if nothing stopped. Expectations were not lowered. The only thing that they didn't do at the end of last school year were do exams. Instead of doing their traditional exams, they did end-of-course projects instead. Well, but their learning never stopped. There was never a gap in the learning, right? And so then you think about districts that don't have those type of resources that had a hard time rolling out a learning plan. They had a hard time getting computers to parents. And if they did get computers, the computers didn't work well. Then it was hotspots. Well, the hotspots didn't always work well. And so, what this pandemic has shown is those with resources will continue to learn, and those without won't. And so, and I think that's what scares me when it comes to parents not taking this time seriously, because when we don't, what we're doing is there's always a learning loss anyway, during the summer, when the kids are off those 6 weeks, because, and it's okay. People do what they do, right? So I'm not here to tell anybody how to parent, all right? But when you don't engage your child in anything from reading, any critical thinking for 2 months, and then send them back to school, they lose about about a year's worth of learning, right? And so now here we are at this time frame where people are really not taking this time as serious as they ought to. And there's so much learning loss going on. And I think that's what scares me, because, my specialty is reading, is literacy. And so I look at the literacy rates, and I'm interested to see what happens with literacy research after this year, because the last study that was out, it was 25 million Americans, adults. Okay. We're talking about 25 million adults. And this number has probably increased, that were reading on a 5th grade reading level. 25 million adults reading on a 5th grade reading level. 5th. Like,
wow.
A 5th grade is 10. Yeah. And so I think about literacy rates. Yeah, it's really sad. And so when I think about this time in education, it really is kind of twofold for me, because at the same time, I will tell the teacher, you're doing nothing to engage this class. I wouldn't want to come either if I was the kid. So it's not, listen, hey, what I say, tell the truth, shame the devil.
Yes,
so if we're working on a triangle and everybody has a part, everybody has to know when they're not playing their part. And when teachers aren't playing their part that I'm working with, I let them know, listen, I wouldn't come to that. You're doing nothing to activate any critical thinking skills in these students. Everything that you ask them, they can ask Siri and move on with life. That's nothing that engages a kid. It's so much going on in the world today that education shouldn't necessarily be all about standards, but how do your standards and how does this content really connect to real life? Like I tell social studies and history teachers, listen, if y'all are not rocking your content right now, something is wrong. Do
Absolutely.
you see what's going on globally? Do you see what's going on with our political system? Do you see what's happening with the Constitution? If you can't, with the protests and civil liberties being challenged, if you can't pull all of those things into your content, you're really not trying, right?
Right.
So it's not just all on kids and parents. Teachers also play a role too.
And that's interesting that you say that, because for me, that goes to that teacher who teaches to the box and won't teach outside the box. And for me, it's all about, I always say, I feel like a good teacher can teach to the child, no matter what the lesson is and how many students there are. They get to know their student individually, and they know what that child needs. And so I think that is part of the struggle that a lot of parents are feeling, because without that face-to-face, they don't feel like that interaction is.
Yeah.
And in the same turn, I feel like a lot of students aren't taking it serious, because like you said, they're like, oh, it's whatever. And then when grades come, they're like, oh, wait, these grades were serious. Wait a minute, hold it. I need a do-over. And, like, do-overs don't really necessarily come. And, you don't often get a do-over.
Yeah. I wish the answers were easy to this conversation, because it's right. Really, it's no right or wrong, right? I don't have a really nice, yes, we can do A, B, and C, because again, this is a team process. And unless all the players decide they want to work together and do what's best for the student, it's always going to be a tug of war, even with the child. And a lot of times the students feed off of the attitudes of the adults in the room. Yeah. And so if we don't have a good attitude about it, then the kids not going to have a good attitude about it, right? If we as parents aren't taking this time seriously, the kids aren't going to take the time seriously. Then if the teachers aren't preparing lessons in a way that speaks to the whole child, because I will tell you, it is difficult. It's not impossible though. It's difficult to I'm not even gonna say difficult. It's challenging to build relationships, but it's not impossible. Case in point, so I had a training last week for 3 days. 52 teachers I had never met in my life. Never met them at all. By the third day, they were emailing me just like, oh my gosh, this was such a great training. Thank you for making it engaging. Thank you for really thinking about the needs and the objectives of why we're here. But like I tell them, I seriously sat and think about, what do my learners need from me? Because in essence, I'm a teacher. I'm teaching adults, but I still need to make sure that I'm meeting their needs, not just with the content, but that I'm meeting their needs socially, and I'm making them feel like I want them in my session and that my session is inviting. Is it challenging? Yeah. Did it take a lot of energy? Yeah, but it wasn't impossible, right? I had office hours at the end of the training for an hour. And every day, and so I'm thinking they'll be like, yeah, that's a free hour, girl, every day. The first day I had 8 people stay on them office hours for an additional 45 minutes. And I'm thinking I gave them a whole free hour and they stayed to talk to me for 45 minutes. The next day, maybe about 5. But the last day, I had one participant that just wanted to stay and have a conversation back and forth. So is it challenging to build those relationships? Yes, it is. But everybody has to be willing to build the relationships. It's not impossible. It's not impossible. And it's through those relationships with everyone that you begin to see the effectiveness of this virtual learning environment.
That you're right. I mean, you're absolutely correct. And I feel like people are using that separation of the computer, the internet wave, as a reason to not be connected, as a reason to not give it your all, when we can still be going 100%. And like what I shared with some people is, this is the best time for you to work on life skills. Okay, if the internet is down, if Zoom isn't working or whatever, life skills, like, so much has been taken from the school that, our children are unprepared. So teach them some things, do some cooking, do some other things. And what I always tell people is, you'd be surprised, and where there's math in everyday life. So utilize those things that you have at your disposal to integrate all of that and teach your children some things. And not rely so heavily on the teacher. Because I said, it's a triangle. If we all do our part, then it's a little better.
And plus, it's a global society. Okay, so let me we didn't know each other at first. You live in Pennsylvania, I live in Tennessee. We got connected through the internet and built a relationship through Zoom conversations. And so when we start thinking about this as, you said life skills, this is a life skill. I now know how to conduct a meeting with someone in Japan, right? And conduct an effective meeting without me having to fly to Japan or them flying to meet me. I can now do those things. Now, another life skill is time management. I now know how to manage my time in a non-traditional setting, because when kids go to college, this is a lot of what college looks like anyway. You don't have anyone holding your hand, telling you to go to class, making sure, that you do your homework on your off days. You don't have all of that. So when we start talking about life skills, this is a life skill, understanding how to manage and be accountable. That's what that is. That's part of those social and emotional learning skills that, we should teach embedded every day in curriculum, not something that should be done a couple of weeks at the beginning of the school year. Those are more like relationship building activities. Social emotional learning skills are skills that we teach kids continuously throughout the year that help them build those life skills that they'll need as adults. So Yeah.
I like that. I like that. Absolutely. Accountability is a big word. Is a big word that a lot of people don't understand what it means and aren't willing to accept responsibility. I mean, at the end of the day, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Wait, so Tiffany is saying she told her boss that she is not coming back because she is so effective at home. Now, Tiffany, you can mess around and get fired if you want. I'm not paying no bill. Don't be telling your boss because you heard Erika say it. No. But yes, I agree. I feel like, people are, there are a lot of people who are using this time wisely and they're learning things. And, I talked about on a previous show about people who use this time to pivot their career or discover some new hobbies or some new things that they can kind of get out and do. Look at what you're doing. Like you're selling, you got your whole skirt jewelry business, on the side of what you're doing. At some point, you're going to have a full-time job. I don't know how you're going to manage it all, but,
Right.
and so I think that becomes about being accountable. Like, you use your time wisely to, for the good. So that is definitely
Also,
something.
listen, this is a great time to get to know your teenager too at the same time. We're at home. This is the opportunity to strengthen your family. Take this opportunity to really learn your teen, listen to your teen, because a lot of our teens right now, this is, first of all, it's the holidays. The holidays are not happy for everyone. Suicide actually for ages 10 to 24 have increased by almost 70% over the last decade. 70%. But the kicker was 10. At the age of 10, I was not thinking about committing suicide, right? And so, suicide rates have increased. Mental health issues have also increased. And a lot of that is because people feel isolated. Well, let's talk about youth, because see, that's my specialty. But a lot of our youth and adolescents, they feel isolated. They don't feel like they have anyone to talk to. As parents, we get so busy trying to provide a lifestyle that we forget a lot of times our children would just prefer us to be there than the things that we give them. I mean, of course, they love the things that we give them, but our time and our listening without judgment is so much more precious to them than what we realize. And so now that we have this time at home, this is now a newfound opportunity for families to build their relationships, right? And to really get to know each other. Don't leave it up to, and you said it at the beginning, how teachers have been deemed as babysitters. When I first started teaching, my husband had to tell me to stop bringing kids home because I would get attached. I would get attached to my students. I would bring them home. I was, you need money for this project. I would buy money for projects because I would get so attached because they didn't have anyone. And so finally my husband's like, listen, you're gonna have to quit bringing all these kids to our house. But right, we don't claim them on our taxes. Stop bringing them home. But I built relationships with students that I still have to this day where my very first set of students, they're now adults. I've watched them open businesses. I've watched them have children. And it's unfortunate that they didn't have those relationships when they were growing up. And now it's an opportunity as parents for us to really get in tune with our adolescents. Listen, risky behaviors are up. Drug use begins younger and younger. Smoking marijuana, drinking, all of those behaviors that kids used to could hide because parents were so busy trying to provide, they now are presenting themselves. And so now is a great opportunity for parents to really take this time to learn the teens and preteens that they have in their home.
Absolutely. I agree, because I even told people when the shutdown happened, even though I was a little sad about not traveling, I love that we were all home doing our thing. We were cooking more than we probably ever cooked. I was able to get my garden going. It's something that has been on my list forever. Literally, like, we would just sit and watch TV together. We would, play. Like, we did things that we really just had not been doing because life had been so busy. My kids are athletes, so my husband and I are usually split up at games, but while during the shutdown, we were all practicing together. There was so much, and that's what I told people. I said, "Wow, it's different. Embrace the differenceness of it. Like enjoy it." Exactly, like because we don't know when we'll get this time back. Like find the time and and enjoy it. And especially for me, I have a senior who's going to be leaving the nest next year.
Me
I'm like,
too.
we need to take this time and really enjoy it as best we can. And I definitely see where just the instances of kids feeling isolated and all of that happening. And I see why, because I do believe what you're saying with a whole lot of kids being in their rooms. Now, full disclosure, my children do their school in their room. I know. I had to tell my daughter that she cannot do school in her bed. The thing with her is she is a motivated student. Sometimes too motivated. She is all about, if I don't get an A, it's a problem. I need to figure what is the deal, whereas I need to tell her it's okay not to be perfect. So that's the conversation I have with her often. Whereas the flip side is my son, he was just being in his room because he wasn't going to work, he was being lazy. So I realized that I needed to pop in and check. But what I do is I require recess. Like, we need to go outside. Let's go in the yard. We can toss the ball. We can run around. Let's talk. Let's do whatever. So we do break it up, in and what it provided and what it allowed me to do, breaking it up, is really get an idea for what's really happening, what they were thinking, and how they were feeling. Now, my son has some really cool classes where they talk about current events and things of that nature. And, he goes to a private school. So we were dealing with a lot of, injustice that was going on. And, they were talking about it at school. And I'm like, well, listen, it ain't, it's like 4 y'all at the school. What's the conversation? So it really enabled us to have a different type of conversation that we may not have had if he was, always at school. So yeah. I definitely think that is great. And I hope that more people, realize and change, even though they're saying we're only going to be shut down for 2 weeks. I don't anticipate going back to school till January, and I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. Yeah. So my last final question to you is, for the parent who is saying, I quit virtual school, what should we tell them?
Don't quit. Number one, don't quit. Keep going. But one of the things I would suggest is getting in those local, but also those parent groups on Facebook where you have the opportunity to kind of talk about your grievances with other parents and get other perspectives. Right? We have to get outside of ourselves. So it's really I really recommend finding other parents where you can chop it up with, kind of talk about what's going well for them, what's not working, and what advice they have to help. Because if someone is not going through it, then of course we can't, they can't necessarily understand, why it's such a big deal for you. So definitely joining other parent groups where you have the opportunity to hear other perspectives of the virtual school. Another thing I would say is look for those educational resources. So, just a plug, reading is my thing, but I am dropping a trio of reading courses for parents to help with vocabulary development. I went ahead and pulled the trigger. I've been working on them for months. They should have been done. It was not hard information, but get you some courses that can be self-study and that you have the opportunity to have lifetime access. Because listen, some of these skills that I'm actually teaching are beneficial for adults as well, because they focus on reading comprehension, how to have fun and engaging conversations about books, but also vocabulary development. Some of the 3 things that I see are lacking right now in this virtual learning space. And so you look for opportunities to find courses for yourself. Because listen, although you're thinking, I'm not my child's teacher, this is great information for you to have just to help your kid as they grow up and as they continue through school, but also for you as a parent to continue your learning. And then as always, I would always also say, make sure that you check in with your child. So I'm kind of like you. I have a senior. The school that my son goes to has really trained them to be accountable for themselves. And so I really haven't had to be accountable for him as it relates to schoolwork for many, many years now. What's interesting is I'm having to stay on him about applying for colleges and making sure just little things that need to be done for his senior year are taken care of. But every now and then I'll just check in on his it's called Scholar. I'll check in on their his platform and say, okay, so I see you have 3 things that's not done in English. If you want to leave this house on the weekend, when I check back, they need to be turned in, right? So every now and then I do a little pop-up myself just to keep him honest, because if not, he'll be like, no, I'm fine. And so I'd be like, oh, okay. So and he's a senior. So one of the things that I find is the older that kids get, the more hands off their parents become. And that's okay, because we do need to not be that helicopter parent, but there needs to be a balance of, you're growing up, but I'm still your parent and I'm still going to hold you accountable. Absolutely. So, just those. Listen, I wish all the answers were easy, Tamika. I wish I could provide your listeners with a magic bullet that will take care of all of it. But
Lord, I wish you could too, girl. I do.
It's too many dynamics and it's so many layers to this thing that this is a conversation that you could have over and over and over again. And then you would uncover another issue that needs to be addressed with virtual learning. And it's not on one side or the other. Again, I like it. We're a triangle. So everyone has a part. Yeah,
absolutely. All right. Well, we are 2 minutes, literally 3 minutes to 9, and I'm respectful of people's time. But I am definitely gonna have you come back on, because I feel like as this year keeps moving, we got all these different layers that we're trying to figure out. And I would love for you to come back on and talk more about this course that you're rolling out that we've been talking about for a minute. That I'm glad you finally did it, but that's another story. Well, yes, we definitely need to have you come back on. Maybe you can give people like a little brief, a brief presentation on what it entails, how they can sign up, all of that kind of stuff. But for now, let them know where they can find you online. And if the course is ready and they want to get it, let them know where to go now.
Listen, so you can find me on all of my handles are the exact same to make it easy. On Twitter, I am at the Erika Battle. On IG, I am at the Erika Battle. On LinkedIn, the Erika Battle is how you would find me. And yes, I am going to link the course on IG tomorrow, actually. And I'm rolling it out on a special. So it's actually on a special. I'm discounting all 3 courses just because it's Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and Small Business Saturday. So the trio of the courses will be $67, and they will push out on December 1st. I know it's really a great deal because it's a lot of information. Teachers pay me thousands of dollars to teach this information, but I'm giving it to parents at truly a fraction of the cost.
Yeah, like 1%, like 1% of the cost. Absolutely. No, that is great. So guys, I posted there everywhere. She is the Erika Battle. And once she drops the course and stuff, you can look to Instagram. I'll make sure that I share it out, and I'll make sure that I link it to the bottom of this video so people who are watching the replay can get it as well. But thank you for joining me. And parents out there, she's already told you, if you're thinking about quitting virtual school, don't do it. We know our kids got to be educated. I know it's not easy, but you can do it. Listen to some of these tips that she gave you. Reach out to her, use her as a resource, and get this $67 course, because I'm about to get it.
Yeah.
Listen. All right, guys. Everybody have a great night, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.
Bye.